Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Sick Call. This morning, we are super excited for today's guest. We have with us Lieutenant Colonel Janice Daniel, U.S. Army CRNA, and Phase 2 Coordinator at the U.S. Army Graduate Program in Anesthesia Nursing, commonly known as USAGPAN. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
We also have, of course, our team here at the Valencia Medical Recruiting Station. We have Sergeant First Class Michael Q with us.
Morning, everyone.
Staff Sergeant Scott McMenemy.
Good morning.
And of course, myself, Sergeant First Class Michelle Phillips.
Ma'am, once again, good morning. Can you please start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, why? Sure. Again, thank you for having me again. So I've been around the Army for quite a long time here, and right about now, I started off out as a enlisted reservist in the medical field for the U.S. Army as an LPN. That's long years ago, so I won't tell you what my age is, so keep that under wraps if you figure it out as I speak. I started as an LPN, and I knew that from that time that I wanted to increase where I wanted to go with my nursing career. So I accessed onto active duty around the 2003 timeframe after I received my bachelor's degree from a civilian college. And at that time, I was actually motivated to become an Army CRNA because I had heard about them, but wasn't quite sure what they did. Starting off as a critical care nurse, after a few years on active duty, I deployed and applied for the program, and I am a product of the USAGPAN program and happy to be that way. I've been around for a little while on active duty. I've been a CRNA for about 10 to 12 years now. And so if you're still counting, you should know how long I've been in around the service, and I've had a good time doing it. So as a CRNA now, I've been various places, and I've also enjoyed this job now as the Phase 2 program director here in the wonderful San Antonio.
So, ma'am, can you tell us a little bit about where you've been stationed at?
Sure. So after I initially finished my CRNA program, my first duty station was in Fort Stewart. I spent about 2 years there in Fort Stewart. And then I was relocated to South Korea. So I was in Korea for 2 years, and then I went to Germany for about 4. Within Germany, I've had a lot of opportunities to sort of do different missions and deploy. And since Germany, I ended up here in San Antonio, where I've taken this position after having a good time here in San Antonio as well at this Level 1 Trauma Center.
Ma'am, with all those places, what's been your favorite duty station?
Of all those places thus far, I call them vacation spots that the military has afforded me the opportunity. So my best vacation spot has been Germany by far. One, that because I had the opportunity to work with a lot of NATO nations. So not just being a soldier in the U.S. Army there in Germany, but actually opportunity to work with other countries over there. Got a chance to travel Europe. So that's why I can always say these places are actual vacation spots, because I love to travel. But definitely by far, Germany has been my best assignment.
So, ma'am, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience as a deployed CRNA?
As a deployed CRNA, so my initial deployment was as a critical care nurse. Sort of differed a little bit. We went different places. As a CRNA, I've been fortunate enough to have been able to expand on my practice and not be a new grad deployed, even though the USAGPAN program prepares us to deploy as soon as we graduate. We will definitely be prepared to be that sole provider. So one of the things that as a CRNA in a deployed environment, we're never known what we're going to expect. So being the sole provider, sometimes we're on what we call ghost teams, and those are small essential teams that we may just have the CRNA and a general surgeon or an ortho surgeon and LPN and a nurse. So a small 5-man intimate team and you're sometimes that sole provider. So a lot of responsibility on how to actually interact. We can prepare for mass cows and sort of be prepared for anything in a deployed environment. It's very austere. We're sometimes working with limited supplies, but definitely USAGPAN has definitely prepared us to perform in that manner.
Man, what's your favorite thing about Army nursing?
Army nursing, what can I say? First of all, as a CRNA, you can definitely assure that from myself and probably any other CRNA out there, they will never complain about this job. It's such a rewarding job. You're independent provider. You have this responsibility, and it's just very rewarding to see how you are managing folks on a daily basis, even if it's an elective procedure or if it's an emergent procedure, and just seeing how they come out of anesthesia. And so it's very rewarding. Army nursing in general has been rewarding. That's one of the reasons I accessed onto active duty. I sort of looked at the longevity and the responsibility that I would have had if I was in a civilian facility. And I realized that the Army, since I started off enlisted, I know that the Army puts you in those challenging positions that you are more than capable of performing in, and it gives you that challenging experience, and that's what Army nursing is all about. You do a lot with a little time or a little resource, but it's very rewarding in the end.
So, ma'am, what kind of positions can you expect to fill as a CRNA in the Army?
So it all depends sort of where you are in your career progression. So if you are a new grad, you can expect to be a staff CRNA at one of our medical arenas, our big medical centers, our bigger hospitals with more services, working elective cases, coming in early. You have your cases worked up, perform anesthesia, and do it all again the next day. If you are a little more advanced in your career, maybe about 2 or 3 years out, you can be assigned to a field hospital or a forward surgical team that's like sort of our FORSCOM units, that where they're more concentrated on deployment. You can be in a leadership role where you're actually in charge of that FORSCOM, that forward surgical team. Sometimes as you advance with career progression, with experience, and also with rank, you end up taking on those leadership roles as assistant chief or chief of these clinical areas. And then it progresses. You can be in education, such as myself right now as a phase 2 program director. So there's a lot of avenues for leadership. It just depends on the progression in your career and where you would like to go with it.
Ma'am, you paint a really good picture, just for the Army model in general, because one of the things the Army prides itself on is the networking and the career progression opportunities that we have. And you yourself, as a USAGPAN graduate, and then now as the phase 2 program director with the program, you have a unique perspective because you can talk about what it was like to go through it, but also now, from that leadership role, what that looks like for the students. So can you explain to our viewers what the USAGPAN program is and what they could expect if they would be accepted to attend the program?
Sure, definitely. So there's sort of 2 avenues to which someone can enter the program. And for those that are coming direct to session from a civilian status, and there's also the long-term health education that the Army puts out there. Sort of same requirements, is just a different avenue of getting in. So with that said, the USAGPAN program is a doctoral prepared program, 3-year program that's upfront loaded didactically with 12 months. And then there's 2 years of a clinical location at one of our 7 sites, to include Washington State. There's 3 locations in Texas. One of them being where I am the phase 2 program director at BAMSI. And then we have also Hawaii. We have Fort Bragg and then there's also Fort Gordon. So we have a various sites that you can go to for your clinical portion. And then you're just expected to do that didactic phase at Fort Sam here at our phase 1 site. So front loaded, and then your clinical portion where you're delving more into the profession and performing.
So, ma'am, what does an applicant for the SAGPAN program look like? And more specifically, what qualifications are required to apply?
Sure. Our program is very competitive. We are probably in the top 10 around the nation in program. So I'm biased. I think we're the best, number 1 all the time. That's right. But to be competitive for our program, there's certain admission criteria that you would have to meet. One being GPA, of course, 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. GRE scores, having a composite score of 300 with an analytical score of greater than 3. And then also we actually calculate your science GPA. That's one of the things that can make your packet a little stronger, actually. If you have had sciences within 5 years, and we preferably tell applicants, take a course if you're accepted within a year of being of starting anesthesia school, because we're so strongly based on physiology, especially. Then also a very important part of that admission criteria is that you have at least a year of critical care experience, and 2 years is even better, but at least a year. The CCRN is also, it's not mandatory, but that definitely would give you a plus in making your packet more stronger. That's essentially assessing your knowledge of that critical care, because that's a lot of what we depend on also in starting our career and our job up front.
So, ma'am, we had a couple of questions this morning from one of our registrants through the process, and it's coming from Mariel Navarro, and her question is asking, what are the paths in becoming a CRNA through the Army? But her follow-on question asked about a route that she could take as a new grad RN to become an Army nurse. So what would your advice be for somebody who needs to work on that experience piece, because it is required for the application process, what they could do to make themselves competitive to maybe be a first-time go, if you will, for the process?
Sure. Having been a new grad, the most essential thing would probably, you're just learning nursing, getting in those critical care areas. So having that knocked out of the way up front is probably going to be the most important thing to accomplish. You would be pretty much fresh in your sciences, but we still would even recommend, if your science GPA is not as high or competitive, getting those, just repeating those science courses to make your package stronger. Being a first-time go in that aspect, when you're a new grad, the critical care portion is probably the most important.
Oh, little technical difficulties.
I'm sorry.
The other part of what
we do also, the other part of what we do as a part of the requirement is actually shadowing. 16 hours minimum is required. So actually in that time frame, shadowing a CRNA and getting a feel for what we do, and sort of take all of that in as you're doing that. So that's a big part of being a first time go. Get your shadowing in, get that critical care experience in. And when you're in those critical care areas, take advantage of those more challenging patients and trying to see how the physiology works, and or getting those extra physiology sciences added into your packet closer to the time that you would apply.
And of course, if this didn't answer your question, Mariel, we're happy to field the actual question for you. And Colonel Daniel has extended the branch to say she's happy to speak with folks too. So if you or anybody else out there, the viewers, have questions additional that we can answer for you, please comment below or reach out to us directly through our Facebook page, and we'll get back with you as soon as we're able to. So with that said, a couple of things, man. We actually had a comment from the view this morning, and unfortunately it doesn't have their name, but you definitely got a shout out, a plug from one of your peers, it looks like. And you know, we believe 100%, because we've only had positive interactions with Colonel Daniels, that she probably is one of the best mentors out there. So, you know, please be willing to reach out to us and kind of let us know what we can do to help you out. So now, ma'am, kind of getting to the wrapping up phase of the interview this morning. And one of the things that we like to ask our guest is, if you could do it all over again, one, I'm pretty confident you would, but two, what piece of advice would you have liked to have received that you could offer to some of these viewers that are considering a transition into Army medicine for themselves?
If I haven't said it before, I think everyone can hear the enthusiasm in my voice. If you're a civilian or a military CRNA, this is one job you will never regret having done. You'll never hear a CRNA complain about their job. If I had to do it all over again or get that piece of advice, I wish I had done all those recommendations sooner, meaning getting into critical care sooner, getting those requirements met sooner, so I can actually enjoy this job even quicker. But those are some of the things that I wish I could have done just sooner, because it's such a rewarding job, and you definitely won't regret it.
Fantastic. Ma'am, we can't thank you enough for being with us this morning. We appreciate your enthusiasm and excitement for the profession and, you know, for military recruitment in general. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you again for having me.
And thank you, ma'am. Thank you to our viewers also for logging in. Next week, we will have Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Long on our show, tell us about Army entomology. As always, we welcome your questions, so please comment below or on any of our other social media platforms. We look forward to seeing you again next Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for Sick Call right here on our YouTube channel. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.